So is there gold missing at Fort Knox? Is this a cover-up? In today's video, I'm going to share with you the facts and then what I think is going on. Okay, fact number one is this started a few weeks ago when Elon Musk tweeted, "Who is confirming that gold wasn't stolen from Fort Knox?" Maybe it's there, maybe it's not. The gold is owned by the American public. We want to know if it's still there. And that's accurate. We do want to know that the gold is still there. Okay, so do we audit Fort Knox? Let's find out what the facts are. USA Today has an article, "Trump vows to make sure gold is at Fort Knox. Treasury Secretary says it's accounted for." President Trump promised to investigate Fort Knox in Kentucky after Elon Musk made calls to audit the gold at the military base. Trump said, "We're going to go to Fort Knox, the fabled Fort Knox, to make sure the gold is there. If the gold isn't there, we're going to be very upset." Yeah, we're definitely going to be very upset. And Musk had been fanning the flames of an unfounded conspiracy that the gold might be gone from Fort Knox. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told iHeart host Dan O'Donnell all the gold is present and accounted for, adding that the department conducts an audit every year. Okay, so we know the gold is audited every year, but who does the audit, things like that. That's part of the reason that there's these questions. It doesn't sound like these audits are third-party verified, that there's outside members from the public. In fact, we're going to find out more about that in this next article. USA Today, "Tons of gold safe at Fort Knox?" Trump, Musk are not the first ones to doubt it. Theories of thievery at Fort Knox are nothing new. When members of media and lawmakers got their first glimpse of the gold in 1974, a New York Times headline read, "Visitors get a peek at Fort Knox gold. It's there." So even the New York Times was like, okay, we're confirming it's there per that visit. Who has seen inside the gold depository? How many audits have there been where it's open to outside people, very select outside people? It turns out there's only been 3 times. Only thrice since the depository was established have outsiders entered the vault. The last time was during President Trump's first term in 2017. Then Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, Bevin, who I believe is a legislator from Kentucky, and congressional lawmakers paid the first visit inside since 1974. So when Gerald Ford was president, there was a visit done then. And then, 43 years later, there was another visit. Find out about that 1974 trip. It was the result of theories similar to the ones circulating today. It was the first and only time members of the media were allowed inside. Photos taken by the Louisville Courier-Journal show the inside of the vault stacked with gold bars. Before that, before the 1974 visit, Franklin Delano Roosevelt inspected the depository on April 28, 1943. And interestingly, no president since Roosevelt has gone inside, according to the U.S. Mint. Okay, so those are the facts. Now, what do I think's going on? Why do I think there's this talk about, is the gold there? First, I'm going to share that, but I want to share this article from Forbes that lays the background for what I'm about to share. Forbes has an article called, "Is it time for the U.S. to revalue its gold reserves?" Notice it's not talking about auditing it or making sure it's there. So the article goes on to say, what's less known is that the stockpile's value has remained at just $42 per ounce since 1973, putting its total value at around $11 billion. $42 an ounce. We're going to get back to that. So the U.S. Has a lot of gold, and we're valuing it at $42 an ounce. Forbes goes on to say, let's say we were to reevaluate those reserves today at today's price around $2,900. Now, this article was published in February. Gold has gone up since then. The total value, if we revalued it at $2,900 an ounce, would jump to a staggering $760 billion, creating a windfall of almost $750 million, 749, I'm sorry, not million, billion. And a billion is 1,000 million. So it's a big number. This could provide the government with options to sell a portion of its gold. I don't think we would do that. Or enhance its balance sheet by reducing debt. It could even be used to fund a sovereign wealth fund. Okay, that's key. And then just quickly, according to CNBC, the current value of gold is no longer $2,900 an ounce. It's now $3,365 an ounce as of the time that I recorded this. You can see this price chart, which is the 1-year price of gold, and you can see that's a nice move from lower left to upper right. So gold has had a nice move over the last 12 months, which is part of what I think is going on. Not necessarily the move over the last 12 months, but the current price of gold being so different than that $42 an ounce. So obviously, we've got deficit spending. We've got a lot of U.S. government debt. In fact, our current debt load let's say it's about $35 trillion. That amounts to $100,000 of debt per man, woman, and child in the United States. So think about that. For a family of 4, that's $400,000 of debt. And if you assume interest on that debt is 5%, I'm just making up a number, that is at $400,000, that is $20,000 a year per average U.S. household. That just for the interest. That is a staggering amount of debt. So what do I think is going on here? What I think is we are looking for every way that we can. Imagine you're a small business owner and you've got a bad balance sheet, right? You don't have enough equity in your company. You've got debt. You want to continue to borrow. And what we're seeing right now is there's turmoil in the world. There's turmoil in how the rest of the world is looking at the United States. The biggest buyer of U.S. debt is currently Japan. Now, for a long time, interest rates have been low in Japan. They've just started to go up. So people in Japan may have, I'm not saying they were, but may have been buying U.S. debt because we paid a higher interest rate. Now Japan is going up in how much debt that is going on. And so there may be fewer buyers of U.S. debt. So part of this might be trying to figure out a way to to prop up our balance sheet so we look like a better debtor. Just recently, the U.S. debt was downgraded, and that's not a good thing. That could, over time, raise the cost of borrowing. So part of do I think there's a conspiracy going on? I don't. Do I think there's gold missing? I don't. What I think is going on is it's really a way to shore up our balance sheet in an effort to keep our borrowing costs as low as possible. If you like this video, the YouTube algorithm says this is the next video specifically for you that you should watch next. Thanks for watching this one. Bye-bye.